Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and this is a video that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. The comparison between the Kawasaki Eliminator 500, the Ninja 500, and the Z500. We are up here at Kawasaki's North American headquarters in Foothill Ranch, technically Lake Forest, California, not too far from the new DM headquarters. So why not take this opportunity to take a look at three of Kawasaki's most refreshed, lightweight, entry-level style motorcycles. Now, I've got reviews on all three bikes individually, but as of today, right now when I'm shooting this, I have only spent time on the Z500 and the Ninja 500. I have not yet ridden the Eliminator 500. So this is going to be a little bit more of my raw first impressions on the bike, as well as a comparison of which one you should buy. For those of you who don't know, Kawasaki has updated these three bikes with a 451cc motor, which they're calling the 500, obviously. It's an evolution of their 400cc motor that we've seen in these bikes before, making about 51 horsepower, 52 I suppose technically if we're rounding up, and 37 pound-feet of torque. And that results in two things. One, it's legal for Europeans with the A2 certification, and it means it's just enough power to get yourself in some trouble, but also not so much that if you're not really familiar with riding, you're not going to get yourself in too much trouble. I know from experience on both of the red bike and the green bike that they will certainly hit triple-digit speeds if you give them the space, but they're not going to yank themselves away from you and pull the front wheel up the way that you might start getting into once you get into 650s and 600s and 1000s, 900s, etc. So it's a great level of power for daily riding. It's a great level of power for newer riders. And what it also results in is a lightweight motorcycle that's very simply fun to ride around. I went and did some of the Malibu canyons on the Ninja 500 in my video. I went and did some of the, well, I did do canyons on the Z500 as well, but I had that also for the video of just kind of riding around, city type riding, daily commuting style. And with the lower seat height and more approachable riding position of the Eliminator, that should be even better for city riding and commuting and kind of the style aspect as well if you're going for that cruiser look. So let's start right here on the end with the Eliminator 500. It is the most expensive. You're looking at about $7,000 if you're putting on ABS and factoring in the $450 destination charge for this bike. And I can't necessarily tell you here before riding it that it's necessarily worth that extra upcharge. I mean, it does seem to have a little bit more metal bits on it than the other two bikes, although the tank is metal on all of them. So I don't know, you're not getting a windshield, you're not getting fairings or anything like that, but you might be getting a little bit more robust suspension, and you're getting that style piece. Now over here, we've got not only the Ninja 500, but it is the KRT SE edition. So it's getting you the Kawasaki Racing Team graphics package. And then also we're getting some of the SE bits, including these built-in frame sliders, a radiator guard, this larger windshield, proximity key, something the other two bikes do not have, and a TFT display. Also this cowl back here, looking cool. And the Ninja's giving you more of that sport bike sort of look and feel without giving you super sport cons, I will say. So you don't have the remarkably uncomfortable seating position of a full super sport motorcycle. You don't have the super loud exhaust. And it means that you can ride the Kawasaki Ninja 500 day in and day out, not be uncomfortable, and have it still be approachable while still looking the part. I mean, for people who don't know, they're gonna think that this is a full-on race bike. And then the naked one, the Z500. This is also the special edition, giving you this candy apple red paint color. Also the radiator guards and the frame sliders, the same ones we see on the Ninja. We get the seat cowl right up here. We do get a TFT display, but for some reason the Z does not get the proximity key, so we just got a standard key. However, I should point out, it's kind of cool that the keys for all three bikes are unique. They're unique to each one. So this is the Z's key. This is the Ninja's key. You can see it's proxy key, but then it flips out for you to get gas or lock the helmet ring. And then the Eliminator's key. That's a little bit of a different style. It's kind of cool that even for these more entry-level bikes, Kawasaki gave you a little bit of key individuality. So I forgot to mention the price. The Ninja starts at about $5,700 after destination. This one you're looking at about $6,700. And the Z is right there around the same pricing. It's about about $6,000 starting, and then getting up in the high sixes, low sevens for the special edition with ABS and everything. But it's gonna give you it's actually about the same seating position between these two bikes, although it feels different because of the lack of as much fairing around you and as much windshield. It is a little bit different rake than the Ninja, and it makes for a little bit more of a twitchy steering feel. We'll talk about that when we're on the bike. But it's also just got a different vibe, a little bit more of that street fighter, kind of rebellious sort of look to it. Whereas the Ninja looks a little bit more race bike, and then the Eliminator, obviously, a little bit more cruiser style. All right, I think it's about time to start these up and go for a ride. I think we should go in the order, we'll go this order. We'll go the Z first, and then we'll go the Eliminator, and we'll talk about the Ninja at the end. If you are newer to motorcycling, or maybe you've been riding for a while, or you're getting back into sport, whatever reason, I'm a big proponent of safety. So the two items that I'm always riding with, not gloves, not boots. I mean, I typically do wear full protective gear, but my bare minimums are two things. One, my helmet, which is on my head, and then two is an airbag. Believe it or not, airbags can greatly reduce your chance of fatal or serious injury. And this right here, believe it or not, is an airbag. This is my new Helite. I can't remember if they have a silly name for it, but it's a leather jacket. It's a leather jacket from Helite, and it is real leather. I mean, this thing, I wish you could smell it. But for those of you who've watched my videos before, you've seen my Turtle 2 vest for when it's really hot out, which admittedly I probably should have wore it today, but I wanted to look cool on these bikes, so I wore the leather jacket. And this tethers right into the bike right here, and if I were to have an accident, it would yank the tether and inflate all around me and help keep me from being dead. So they're a little expensive, but you can at least save 10% by checking out the link below. I get nothing for that, by the way. That's just saving you money. It's not even me trying to make money off of you. I just want you all to be safe and enjoy this beautiful sport that we have that's so much fun in a little bit more of a safe manner. So we're actually going to see, the reason I'm mentioning this now is because we're gonna swap my tether over. We're gonna see how easy it is to find a spot. I guess I've put it on the Z before, but the Eliminator, we'll have to see if we got a new spot. And you can get them electronically tethered as well. I have a backpack from Helite as well that uses an electronic trigger, but the mechanical has its advantages. I've got a whole video on the pros and cons. Now this is technically a little bit low of a place to put the tether. They say you shouldn't do it any lower than your seat, but I'm only gonna be riding this bike quickly, and just as long as it would pull before I hit the ground or get shot into a guardrail, that's what's most important to me. All right, let's start these three bikes up real quick before going out on the ride. I'm curious. I think they all sound pretty similar. Let's do the Eliminator first. Ooh, this one actually has a little bit of a different, a motor kind of intake note. That's kind of cool. Ooh, and the turning radius isn't quite as tight as the Ninja or the Z. Parking them in the shade here so that they're not quite as hot by the time I get back. Now the Ninja, which you can see, proxy key. And now we're ready for the Z. Today we're going to do a nice little loop of spirited riding and a little bit of highway, and talk about the bike's pros and cons in both. The special edition of the Z also gets you some tank guards here. TFT display, very easy to read even in the sunlight. The Z and the Ninja sound the most similar. The Eliminator's got a little bit of a different tone to it from the intake. The Z takes a little getting used to because the steering angle, the rake, makes it really want to turn and almost kind of fall over on you. It's not a lean with it sort of bike. The handlebars are really ready to turn. If you're coming off of something like a cruiser, it's going to throw you off. How much you feel like you're sitting right up on the handlebars. But it's kind of cool once you get used to it. It's a very engaged seating position. I am 5'10", 32-inch inseam, and of course can flat foot this easily at the stop. I got both feet down firmly. I still got a little bit of bend in my legs. The special edition Z gets you a very small windscreen here, and it makes it so the wind hits me upper chest, and I'm actually okay with that because Then when you're riding up at higher speeds, which I guess we'll talk about in the highway section, you don't get any buffeting. It's pretty clean air. However, it does push you back quite a bit. The Z500 feels the least significant of all three bikes. What I mean by that is when you're sitting on it, there's not much in front of you. You've got a little bit of plastic, a little bit of metal, but you really feel like you're just on top of this little toy. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just it's a different feeling. Some people kind of want that. Of course, all three bikes are pretty small and make it so if you can legally lane filter, it's very easy to do. All three bikes have a slipper and assist clutch, which makes it very, very easy to change gears, to upshift, to downshift, and to get away from lights. In fact, the whole time I had both the Ninja and the Z, I don't think I stalled either bike one time. And I'm not saying that it's normal to stall motorcycles. It's just, you know, from any sort of manual transmission vehicle, whether it's a car or a bike, you know, it takes a little while to learn the bite points, and sometimes you're distracted or whatever, and you see a green light, and you let the clutch out too quick and you stall it. Has not been the case with either of these motorcycles. And I'm assuming the Eliminator will be the same. Theoretically speaking, all these motors should be tuned similarly. It's possible that gearing is a little different, but peak torque comes in about 7,500 RPM, and peak horsepower is way up above 10,000. So on these sportier sort of bikes like the Ninja and the Z, it feels natural to really keep them up there in the high revs. I don't think that's going to feel as natural when it comes to the Eliminator. So you can roll onto the power a little lower in the gears and still have enough juice for getting you past traffic or getting you up to speed. It's not like some of the smaller or older beginner bikes where you had to be in the right gear in order to get any sort of get up and go. The Z has a playfulness that feels less serious than the Ninja. You can really lean the bike over a lot just by shifting weight of your hips. And again, that steering, because it's so quick to turn over, change direction, there's a jitteriness to the bike, for better or for worse. Oh, but yeah, you can get right up on the handlebars. I forgot the feeling of this one after being on the Ninja. All three bikes come with optional ABS, and I highly recommend paying for it. Yes, technically you can stop faster without ABS if you know exactly how to threshold brake for your given emergency and situation, but realistically most emergencies happen unexpectedly, and you'll find yourself just grabbing a whole handful of brake trying to stop yourself from running into the car in front of you. In those situations, it's much better to have ABS than to not, to lock it up and end up sliding into the wall. Such a nice natural flow back and forth with the Z. I just kind of lean my body, lean my hips. I almost feel like Shakira, like just hip shaking. and I can wrestle the bike over. I mean, yes, technically I'm doing a degree of counter steering as well, but it feels like I'm just moving my body. Let's do a little acceleration test here, not necessarily to compare the three bikes, but just to kind of see how easy they are all to accelerate with. Get a little lift from the front wheel there, and it's nice that they geared it. If you do care about 0 to 60 times, it's nice that they geared the bike so that you hit 60 in second gear. Man, I cannot get the Z to scrape. I think the foot pegs are a little higher than they are on the Ninja, because I noticed myself scraping on the Ninja a few times. I don't think I ever scraped a peg on the Z. The mirror position of the Z needs to be mentioned. They're very close to you, and I don't know if it's the closeness or the bike or what, but they're buzzier than they are on the Ninja. So it's a little bit harder to see out of them at speed. It's probably not going to come up on the camera because of the refresh rate, but all the headlights in there are just kind of a blur to me. And because they're so close, you get a different view around you than you do with the Ninja. You got to turn your head a little more to see them, but you can see a little bit more directly behind you, so trade-offs. We're gonna roll onto the highway here, I think in 4th gear, give an idea of what it's like to accelerate from there. Sit at 70 miles per hour and compare the noisiness and other sensations. I'll do 40 miles per hour. No, 35. 40. We are 70 miles per hour. You get a lot of wind pushing you, I should say. It's right about my nipples right now, the air starts, and so it pushes you backward the faster you go, and you start really noticing it at 70. If you kind of sit upright and arch your back a bit, then you've got a very natural sitting position. If you scoot your butt back a little, the wind sort of balances you. It's very refreshing, I will say that. And like I said earlier, it's a cleaner air than from the tall windshield on the Ninja, so I'm not getting any turbulence. If I come down here, it's actually a little louder because of the turbulent air. Up here, it's a little more quiet and refreshing. But I will say I've done longer highway rides on both, and I prefer the Ninja because it's less taxing on the rest of your body. You're not fighting the wind as much, and if it's a little cooler outside, you get pretty cold quickly here on the Z, whereas the Ninja, you're more protected. Feeling some wind on my knees, even though they're tucked in. Let's speed it up a little here. 70 miles per hour, we are at just over 6,000 RPM, which is about 6,400. There's a small bit of buzziness in the Z, and I don't notice that as much in the Ninja as well, but it's a fine place to be. Alrighty, done with the Z. And I said we were going to do the Eliminator next. Should we still do that? I kind of feel like the Ninja would be the most appropriate comparison to this. So let's actually go to the Ninja. Sorry I misled you all. Now on the Ninja, all you have to do is flip the key there like I showed you, and right away sitting on it, it feels like a more substantial bike. Even though this is the same price, virtually, same class, it feels more expensive, and it feels like there's more going on with this motorcycle. And right away coming out of the parking lot, the steering is not as twitchy, so you feel like you can a little bit more lazy lean into the bike and have it do the turning for you. Of course, you have the same gauge cluster down there on this SE model. Weights are all pretty similar on these bikes, right around that 380 pound range. Eliminator's getting up closer to 390. Oh, really, Tesla? You're gonna cut in front of me and then make it so I can't get through? Thanks. Think we can get through that? I think it's gonna be a little tight. Thanks, Mr. Trucker Man. The larger windshield, the extra fairing, the slightly different handlebar position, the way they're a little closer together, the Ninja feels more relaxed. And that's certainly not to say you can't ride it aggressive, because we've ridden this very aggressive. But the day-to-day riding is more casual. I will say it is also easier to not realize how fast you're going on the Ninja. A little less air sensation, a little bit smoother experience, the mirrors aren't as vibey. I guess the motor is putting just in the same amount of vibrations through the handlebars, but I think there's a psychological element when you don't see it vibrating as much in the mirrors. Seems like we got just about the same gearing in the Ninja, maybe a little bit taller. But yeah, you feel like you have to do more steering input on the Ninja in order to get it to lay over compared to the Z. You can't just sort of flick your hips in the same way. It feels more stable. I will say, I think the Z is a little bit easier to flick around in the corners. The Ninja, you kind of, it's more of a slow swoosh between corner to corner, but the Z is like a stand up, lay down, stand up, lay down. All three of these bikes make a low enough amount of power that you can twist the accelerator all the way, and unless you're just at the right RPM or you're just at the wrong steering angle, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, yeah, you can upset the bike a little bit with too aggressive of a twist, but compared to a more powerful bike, you're going to be in much better shape. Do another acceleration here. No scrape out of the Ninja either. Alright. I can't keep up with the Model Y, that's for sure. Highway on the Ninja, same thing. We're gonna roll on about just under 40. Yeah, revs seem to be about the same. And as I said on the Z, a little bit more turbulent air on me. It's hitting me about the bottom of my helmet. So depending on how tall you are and how you sit, you're going to have a little bit more air intrusion on the Ninja. Or less air, but sorry, more turbulent air on the Ninja. But you're getting less wind on your body as a whole. So sitting here at highway speeds for longer periods of time is more comfortable. And because the bike is a little less twitchy, you're not feeling like you're getting pushed around in the same way. Gust of wind's not going to take you, and upset the bike quite as much. It's subtle, it's a little difference, but if you're going to be doing longer miles on the highway, I would pick the Ninja, which, you know, not a revolutionary concept given the extra fairing and windshield. And of course with the Ninja you can lean down like this, kind of lay onto the tank, and then you get a lot more aerodynamics going. Between the two, the Z and the Ninja, I've appreciated my time with the Ninja just a little bit more. Like I said, for bikes that cost about the same, the Ninja feels like a more substantial motorcycle. And so when it comes to just grabbing the keys to it to do any sort of riding, it feels like a bike I would be happy with for longer in my riding career. The Z feels, it's very subtle differences, but to me it just feels a little bit more like a toy motorcycle and a little bit more of a stepping stone. Even though they accelerate with the same fervor, the Ninja feels like a faster bike. And as silly as it is, motorcycling is a lot about feeling. So it's less to do with, oh, which bike has explicitly more power, less weight, this, that, and the other. It's how you feel on it. It's not like a car where it's all just spec sheets. And I mean, not all cars are like that either, but they're getting more and more that way. Motorcycling is about the sensation and the feeling and everything. So I would pick the bike that makes you feel, it gives you the best feeling, and to me, the Ninja does that a little bit more than the Z. But it is now time to experience the third one, the Eliminator. Fun fact, did you all know that Kawasaki's have a positive neutral? So when you're stopped and you crank up on the shifter, it goes to neutral. It doesn't go to second. It makes it very easy to find neutral on these bikes. Okay, the Eliminator. Looking at a different suspension, obviously. This is an ABS model, I'm pretty sure. I think I saw ABS on there earlier. Let's see where we can snake our helite tether here. Looks like we might have to pop the seat off. Oh, yeah, there we go. There's the ABS designation. I don't really want it hanging that low. Alright, well, since we're going to be riding this bike for a while, let's pop the seat off. Let's see what we got under there. Is there a seat quick release? Yeah, that's probably right here. There you go. That's a good metal part there. Run that through. It's probably exactly how Helite would want it. Okay, now seat height obviously quite a bit lower, being a cruiser. Start it, let it warm up just slightly before we get rolling. Very long, narrow position here. In fact, it's making me want to change up where things are in my pockets. Doesn't seem like we have a coolant temp on here, so I guess we're just gonna ease onto it. Ooh, yeah, that is comfortable. Nice squishy seat. The steering is quicker than the Ninjas, but slower than the Zs. Because it's a kind of a longer sort of wheelbase feeling, but I don't know, I haven't looked at the brake angle of this one. Ooh. Very far out in front of you, hands. Oh, this is nice. I'm not a big cruiser guy, but this is kind of cool. I like how the design of the bike makes it so that the gauge cluster is still in my vision. It's not like one of those motorcycles where it's way down low here and I gotta dip my head down every time. Especially helps because of where I have my GoPro. It's slightly in my line of vision to the gauge cluster. So in most bikes I'm kind of having to scoop my head around to see my speed. Not so on this one. It's a nice kind of offset there down to the left. We are lacking the TFT display on this one compared to the other two bikes, which, again, a little strange considering the pricing. I like how they kept the handlebars kind of close together. It's maybe a bit strange feeling coming from a wide handlebar motorcycle, but it gives you a quickness to the steering. But man, if you're a shorter rider, this is going to be a very easy bike for you to ride because there's so much bend in my knees still. Standing here at the light. Of course, a nice light easy clutch, easy to grab brake. None of the levers are adjustable on any of these bikes. They're all kind of right where they're going to be. Alright, I'm getting a strange vibration. And you guys can hear that in my voice. The whole bike is shaking. I don't know. That doesn't seem right. I feel like I've got a wheel out of balance. That's unfortunate. Oh, but man, is it quiet up here at speed, because again, no windshield, very clean air coming at me. Nice upright seating position. I also appreciate that they just barely snuck a clock up in there, because that's subtle. Just being able to look down and be like, oh, all right, I am late, or I am early, depending on what type of rider you are. Much harder to see when you need to shift with this bike, and obviously as you learn the sound of the motor, then you know when to shift by sound, but very subtle tachometer. I guess for a cruiser bike like this, I should be happy they gave us a tach at all. It's a little bit harder to sit back on this bike because you start kind of hitting the rear seat. But it is a more relaxed riding position in general. Again, this shouldn't be a shocker to anybody given the different nature of the bike, but it certainly does not want to be hustled through the corners the way the other two bikes did. It's a combination of the suspension, the steering angle, the seating position, everything. I feel less confident going quickly through the corners, and the bike simply it's not begging for it the way the other two are. The motor's obviously just as confident. I am feeling more of the buzz through the foot pegs. It's just almost kind of tickling my foot. It's really weird on the front or on the rear brake there. I can get up on it and force it through these corners, but it just doesn't. That's not what it's here for. I'll do an acceleration on this one. Alright, they seem to be geared the same because I was getting a red line right up above 60 on all three. Oh yeah, there's the scraping. Around that foot peg all the way around that corner. So there's a difference for you. I'm gonna have to get used to that. Still get the benefits of the power band and the Eliminator of kind of not being super important which gear you're in, even if you're down here around 4,000 RPM. You need to roll onto it. The bike will get out of its own way. But I will say, this engine, it feels more at home in the sportier bikes. It does have a nice little grumble to it, kind of right off idle there, but yeah, it doesn't feel right to be screaming with this motor on this bike. Same deal as before. Gonna roll on here on the highway. We'll see if I feel just as confident rounding this corner at about 40. Yeah. Oh, there's a scrape. Ooh, gearing a little bit lower, it's looking like. More like 6,000 RPM flat at 60. Okay. But then again, we've only got those big blocks of RPM gauge to kind of tell us the difference. Okay. More wind, obviously, but it's a clean wind. So I'd say for shorter periods of time, this or the Z are going to be a little nicer on the highway. For longer periods of time, the Ninja is definitely going to be the way to go. Like I said, I can't scoot my butt back far enough to really lean into the wind the way I'd like to and sit upright, but if I could scoot it back all the way to the rear seat, then I've got a nice upright. The mirrors are not as shaky as the Z's at all, a lot less vibration, more like the Ninja, but they've got more of the placement of the Z's on the handlebars here, so I got to turn my head more to see out of them. You barely hear the motor at all. I mean, I can lean onto it full throttle even, and you barely hear this engine. I'm sure a lot of people are going to put exhausts on, and that would change it, obviously, but from the factory, it's a well-balanced motor. Interestingly enough, I am slightly more hunched over on the Eliminator. The bar is a little further forward, and I'm finding I can't quite sit as upright on this one as I can on the other two, so a little bit of a different lower back sensation going on. All right, now that we're back, it's time to pull all three bikes together again and give us a conclusion of some sort. At the end of the day, choosing between these three bikes really should just be what type of riding and what type of rider do you want to do and be. And I know that sounds a little straightforward, but it really doesn't need to be that much more difficult. The Eliminator feels and looks like a cruiser. If you're looking for more of that lifestyle, if you want the low seat, if you want to get on it and kind of feel cool, especially more around town sort of riding, this is going to be the way to go. It's still flickable enough, it's still agile enough, and you still got the gutsiness of that motor. But I will say it doesn't feel at home pushing it hard. If you're someone who thinks you're going to go out and do sporty riding regularly, I would eliminate the Eliminator. Moving all the way down to the Z500, this is the most toy-like feeling motorcycle, and looking as well. It looks cool, very cool, don't get me wrong, but hopping on it, there is a muscliness to it, despite only being a 500, or really technically a 451. But between the riding style, the appearance, and the seating position, it feels most like a very playful sort of experience. It steers very quickly, it's rowdy, it's rambunctious, it's straightforward, it's simple, very simple. This is the simplest feeling of them all. But my choice between the three, for my sort of preferences, is going to be this one right here. Despite being the sport bike look-alike, this is the most well-rounded of all the machines. And it makes sense. I mean, the Ninja was around first. It is the OG. And typically, the derivatives of any machine are not quite as good as the original. And this is it, the original. It's the most comfortable. It's the coolest, I would say. Obviously, it depends on what you're going for, but I would say it's the coolest looking and feeling bike. It's got the most technology. And depending on how you configure it, I believe, without having the specs right in front of me, I think it's the cheapest. So for me, it's going to be the Ninja. For you, it could be the Z, the Ninja, or the Eliminator. They're all three great options for the price and for this level of riding, whether you're someone who just wants an easy grab the keys and go sort of riding experience, lightweight, whether you're loading it onto a truck or in the back of a trailer or just taking it out on the weekends, or a daily commuter. Kawasaki's giving you three great options here with these bikes, and admittedly, I would be happy on any of the three. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more, check the links below for our reviews on all three motorcycles, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, ride on.